So my watch died around 22 miles. And
Yeah.
then very shortly after that, I was in a house of pain. Like
Mm.
I had first my left leg, like right on the outside of my knee, and then my right leg was the same thing. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I couldn't even like run really. I was like bent over. I was like, what is happening? And I knew that it wasn't like a tear or something because it was on both sides. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, what could it was my IT bands because I didn't train appropriately. Like 2.5 months isn't enough time to get those miles under your belt. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's my IT bands. So I kind of had to power through that. And that's where that whole mental thing comes into play, where I went through any quote I could remember. Like I'm thinking about Goggins, and it was like that, okay, I feel like I can't do this, but that means I'm only 40% of given 40. So that's that's what I did for the remainder of the race.
This is your host, Brendan, and you're listening to the Ordinary to Ultra podcast. This podcast is all about helping you run your first ultramarathon and beyond. Tune in to hear new and experienced ultra runners share how they got into running in the first place, what inspired them to run an ultra, training and race day tips, and the gripping story of their first ultramarathon. Prepare yourself to be inspired as you hear stories of grit, sometimes failure, but ultimately triumph when our guests finally cross the finish line.
Hey, Jamie, thanks so much for being here today with me on the Ordinary to Ultra podcast. I'm so excited to learn about you and your story.
Thanks for having me.
So, to start off, Jamie, I just wanted to ask you a couple questions about yourself, just to introduce yourself to everyone. I'm curious how old you are, where you live, what your family looks like, what you do for work, that sort of stuff.
Sure. So I just turned 40 in March.
Woohoo.
Yes, big 40. I have been married to my husband for almost 15 years. We have 3 children, a set of twins, boy-girl twins that are 13, and then my youngest is 11 and he is a boy. We live in Warren County, New Jersey, and I'm super lucky. I live pretty much right at the base of the Appalachian. It's 2 miles to a trailhead for me. So that really helped aid in my training for my race. And I'm a personal trainer. So that's why I went back to
Oh,
school after I had my children, because my job before was not really conducive to raising a family. So I went back and I have been personal training and doing some nutrition stuff for about 8 years.
sweet.
Yeah.
My wife is also a personal trainer, so
Oh,
that's
really?
fun. Yeah, and she totally
Nice.
does it because, yeah, it's like totally easier for her to do personal training um, between our baby, our kid, and
Yes,
we're a growing family. So I get that. That's really cool.
absolutely.
And probably super helpful as you're like training for ultras. You're like, the things you can make. I don't know. You make your own plans, maybe. Did you make your own plan?
Well, this was like a spur of the moment decision.
Sort of
So I
thing.
didn't
Oh, that's
really
right.
have a super steady plan, but lifting plans and stuff like this was
Yeah,
really on a
that's your
whim.
jam. Okay, cool. Well, we can get into that a little bit later. Fun teaser. Um, but that's sweet, and it's so sweet that you live 2 miles from the trails. What?
Yes.
Do you like run to the trail? Like you don't even drive, or do you like drive or ride to the trail or something?
Yeah, it just depends how many miles I'm doing for the day, but a lot of times I'll run to a trailhead or I'll be dropped off at the trailhead and then run home. So it just depends, but I do both.
Super convenient. I am slightly jealous. No,
Yes.
definitely jealous. I mean, I got a 10-minute drive. Like it's not that bad,
Not bad.
but
Yeah.
it would be even easier. No complaints. Okay, Jamie, I'd love to know when your running journey started, whenever that was, and what spurred you to start running?
I grew up in a very active household. My parents were both phys ed teachers. Our vacations, like my first time to Disney was with my own children. Our summer vacations were to the Adirondacks. We'd go hike in the woods and tent camp for a few days and then come out and spend a couple of days in Lake Placid. So I've always had that general, basis of health and fitness. And I was always athletic growing up. So, making that mile time to be like a freshman on the varsity team, that was my extent really of running. I never was like, oh, I'm going to go out for track or cross country. I did other sports, but running was just an aid to, help in those sports. It wasn't until after I really had my children that I started running more, almost every day with the kids. I'd put them in a, double stroller, my twins, and we'd head out for an hour or two, just more for my peace of mind than anything. But that really started my, kind of journey with running.
And how long ago did you start having your kids again? I can't remember how old they are.
So my twins are 13, so I would run with my sister-in-law. We'd have our jogging strollers and kind of run together anywhere from like 2 miles to 5 miles, nothing huge. And then as they got older, I would, they'd run along with me, but really just recently I was started to add, the serious miles on.
Yeah. And you said they're 13?
Yeah, my twins are 13. Yep.
13 now. So yeah, this was a while ago. You're doing the double the double stroller jogger. Man, yeah, 2 twins.
Yeah.
That'd be a big stroller.
Full body workout.
Yeah, seriously. And it's so, side note, it is hard to run with a stroller. Like, it's a lot of added weight. I've done it a few times with my daughter, who's 2.5 now. But yeah, like my watch is like, I don't think you're feeling too good today. Your heart rate was a little high, or I don't know. I'm like, no, I was just pushing a stroller. It just is harder.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a good workout for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so that's how you started running, just some like shorter distance, just to
Yeah,
get out
and
sort of stuff and like keep fitness going
yeah, pass
early
the
on.
time, kind of get the kids outside.
Yeah.
Really, I had before that, I really hadn't done any races, maybe a few charity 5Ks in college and, right out of college, but I was never, I'd go out on my own and jog 3 miles, 5 miles, but I was never into like sign up for this race, that race. That just wasn't my thing.
Yeah. So that was the start, and then when did you start signing up for races? I mean, did you sign up for any road races? Like, is that how you got into it? And when did that happen?
So, true confession, my first race besides those couple of 5Ks was my first ultra, which
Let's
was
go.
2 weeks ago. And that was kind
Let's
of on a
go.
whim. So my first race besides those couple of 5Ks was a 60K with 7,400 feet of elevation. So that's how I
Oh
threw
my
myself into
goodness.
this.
Okay, that's okay, because you don't
Yeah.
necessarily need to have done races that were more. I'm like curious now. Okay. Before we talk more about your ultra, what led you to sign up for that? Like,
Sure.
yeah,
So I was
yeah.
probably like I said, I always like hiking. I bring the kids up on the trail all the time. My husband, my parents go with us. And that was always just hiking. And then I stumbled upon some Facebook groups that were more geared to trail running. And I was like, oh, that sounds better than road running for me. I love being on the trails. So that kind of started my interest. And I think it was like 2 years ago, I got my first pair of trail runners and I started to run the Appalachian. And then I started following a local group who I ran my first ultra with, the TPK, Two Punk Kids. And I believe they're fairly new to the area too with their events. But I started following them and I was like, oh, they have like races really close to me. And looking at my schedule, my kids are in all of the sports. We coach a bunch of sports. So none of the races really ever were conducive to my schedule. However, the 60K just happened to fall on a weekend where we didn't have any sports. So I reached out to one of my friends who was also a client, and I was like, hey, have you ever thought about doing like a longer race? And she's like what, longer than a half marathon? I was like, yeah, like 3 half marathons put together. And I sent her the link, and she's like, okay, I signed up for it. And I was like, what? I was like, oh my gosh, I thought we were going to talk about it. So that is how I signed up for this race. She signed up for it, and I was like, well, I was the one to bring this to her attention, so I guess I have to now too. And that was 2.5 months before the race. So I trained for 2.5 months for my first. Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
my goodness.
Yeah. So it
That's
was
awesome and crazy.
whole experience. Yeah.
That's hilarious. You're like, I was just thinking about this. I wasn't necessarily ready to pull the trigger.
Oh, she pulled that trigger like 15 minutes after I sent it to her. And then I had to like confront my husband, like go to my husband and be like, so I'm signing up for this race. It's 37 miles, and he's not a runner. He's been an athlete, big football player in college, but he's like, what? Like totally didn't understand. So had to get him on board.
Yeah, I mean, that's a long time. It's pretty crazy. It's a long race. And did you have you've been trail running already, right? You said you've been trail running for like the last 2 years. What was like the longest run you've done before this ultra?
So on the trail, the longest run was probably about 9 miles. I had run like 13 miles once or twice, like on my own on the road. So, I knew that I really needed to up my mileage probably way quicker than you're supposed to. So that was, my first hurdle was, and my first hurdle was not looking at my watch. Not that I'm a super fast runner, but when I would go out and run 5 miles, I was always keeping an eye on my pace and stuff. And that kind of really goes out the window, at least for me, trail running. Like you might hit a mile where you're straight uphill, or, 3/4 of a mile where you're over rock scrambles. So I really like that aspect of not always watching the watch. Like for me, that was huge, that like I had to go slow in some situations. So that was really a big thing that got me really hooked on trail running.
hmm It's true. Yeah, there's no like sometimes there's parts of the trail you're like, there's no way I'm running up this. Sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
Yep.
steep.
So yeah.
Sweet. Okay, so you've done some like half marathon distance, some shorter stuff. And okay, so you signed up for the ultra. You got a 60K, which is how many miles?
Right around 37 miles.
Yeah,
Yep.
that is almost 3 half marathons. That's sweet. Um, so you've got the 60K coming up in 2.5 months. What does your training look like during that time?
So a lot of times people get the wrong impression, like, oh, I'm a personal trainer, you work out all day. That is 100% false. If I don't wake up at like 4:30 in the morning, I don't get to work out. I work out in my basement with free weights, a 15-year-old treadmill. I have a Peloton and a very, very old stepper. And my workout is at 4:30 in the morning. So same thing for training for this. I would get up, get on the treadmill, jack the incline up, and I'd run anywhere between like 5 and 10 miles on the treadmill, and then lift a little. And then on the weekends, I had a little bit more wiggle room with being able to go out before my kids' sporting events. So I would run on the Appalachian then. And I would do probably between 10 and 14 miles, but really it was mostly 10 to 12 miles. I didn't have that time with the kids to spend on the trail all day. So I would run as much as I could, and then go to their sporting events. Sometimes I would even run to their sporting events. So that's how my training went, and I tried to get in as many miles as I could a week. I think I averaged probably 25 to 30 miles a week, probably for the last 6 weeks of training.
And I mean, in a short amount of time, did you have like a small taper? Or yeah, like a week or
Yeah,
two before
very
maybe?
small. Yeah, just like the week before, I went out on like a couple of 2 or 3 mile runs, and did a lot of stretching for that. But yeah, there wasn't much time for a taper and a week, and I had no plan. Like I just ran when I could because I felt something is better than nothing. With everything that I have going on here with my family, I just was, if I could get up and get downstairs and do 6 miles, great. If I could fit in 8, great. If I can only get 4, fine. Something's better than nothing. That was kind of my mentality through this whole thing.
Well, I love that. I love that a lot because, yeah, mom life, like duty calls, you got to be there. So you get in what you
Yeah.
can, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. And so I'm glad you just did what you could.
Yeah.
I like running similarly. Like, I have sort of scheduled days I run, and I get those miles in, but there's no pressure. It's
Yeah.
the more I run, the more prepared I'll be, but I'll probably be able to finish it either way. So just do what you can.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um, that's sweet. So that leads up to race day. Um, I was going to ask too, since you're a personal trainer and you know how to weight lift and you've got those skills, did you do a lot of leg strength training during that time?
So I had the basis for that. I was like, the strength training had pretty much been there. It was really just
Okay.
increasing the miles for me.
Okay.
I did lift a little bit less during my training just so I could get more miles in because I only had that like hour and a half in the morning before I had to get my kids up for school. So I kind of maybe only lifted 20 minutes and then I could run for 45 minutes or an hour. But yeah, I kept, I pretty much did like the full body, one day upper, lower. I did do some more heavier squat type stuff to try to prepare my legs. But around here, even if I'm road running, there's significant inclines and stuff. So I feel like that really helped me as well.
Yeah. Well, that's sweet. You're an inspiration being good at strength training and stuff. Because I think that's something that a lot of runners that I've talked to, a lot of runners struggle with. Is we're like, I just want to be outside. Run.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Definitely. Yeah, it is. You got
Yeah,
to find that balance.
yeah. Well, we'll see how my first 50K goes, and if I suffer too badly, then maybe that'll be the
Oh,
sign
you're
that I
going to
need to
do
do strength
great. That's
training.
so exciting. That's exciting.
Thank
You'll
you.
do
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Thank you. Yes, it's coming up in August, so that'll be really fun. Um, okay, it's race day. Um, I would love for you to recount in as much detail as you can muster on how race day was, like from when you woke up, how much sleep you got, what you ate for breakfast, um, how you felt when you started, like if you were anxious or if you were feeling good, and then anything you can remember, any like important details while you were running the race, things that happened, whatever, all up until you cross the finish line. Um,
All right.
you're all about it.
Sure. So the day before the race, we went for early packet pickup, my friend and I, and we got our bib numbers and everything. And the event organizer was the one handing them out, and we kind of were like, "Oh, this is for both our first, ultras." And he kind of looked at the other person at the table and was like, "Oh, you picked a good one." And they kind of chuckled, and I was like, "Oh no." So, I had that in the back of my head all night.
Dang.
So yeah, you don't realize how much stuff too. Like I listened to podcasts and I watched YouTube, documentaries on ultra running, and it's like, oh my gosh, you need to pack so much stuff. Like the food thing, the nutrition thing was all new to me, running and eating. I was like, oh boy. So I kind of messed around with that a little bit during my training just to know what my stomach could handle. But, a lot of stuff that I had heard was you don't want some of the stuff that you think you'd want. So I had like a grocery store with me. I had like olives for the salt and potato chips and the goos and the energy salt tablets and little energy jelly beans and chicken noodle soup and pretzel, like everything that you could think of and I probably ate like not even a quarter of it, like didn't even open it. So I had to pack all that stuff up, and there was a 60% chance of rain. So I had changes of socks, shoes, clothes, so all that stuff had to be packed up. And my husband he was like, I'm going to take you. I want to be able to set you up with a pop-up. He was coming back to take the kids to their sports and everything. And they were going to come much later to cheer me on. And my friend's boyfriend went with us and stayed the whole time, which I was like, oh, I don't need like a crew. I could fill my own water. I recommend to anybody, have at least one person there, because that like 1 minute where you take your vest off and that person can fill up I had liquid IV in my front two little bottles. And then in my back, I had water. So just for him to do that for me, and then I could be like, what do I want to pack to eat? And just take a couple breaths was invaluable. Like I didn't know how much I would appreciate that. So that was something that I learned. So we got there, we set up, the pop-up tent, got all of our stuff out. And then when the race started, my friend and I started together. So how this race was set up was you started at one base camp, and it was 5 loops, and each loop was between I think 8.8 miles all the way down to 5.5 miles. And each loop had anywhere between, I believe, 1,200 feet of elevation gain to 1,700 elevation gain. So everybody started on the same loop. They didn't tell you which one until the day of. So they had the map, and then they were like, everybody's starting on this color loop. So we all went out together. And then it was kind of like a choose your own adventure after that, where you came, and so after it was an 8.8 mile loop, the first one, and you went out, you ran or power hiked up the big vertical. And at the end of that, before you came back, was a piece to your medal. So this medal was a custom wood medal. So the yellow loop had a yellow little triangle with a little carving on it. And when you collected them all, they glued them into your medal, and it made this beautiful custom it's a beautiful medal. So that was really neat. So you went out, you got that, you carried it back, they put it in your little slot so they knew you made it, and then you put a sticker on for the next color that you chose, and that's the loop. So if you then picked red, you would run out, do that, grab the little piece that they had out there, carry that back. And so that's how they kept track of everybody. So that was really, really cool. So we started all out on the same loop. And my friend and I ran together, I think for the first probably 7 miles. Then we went off on our own. It's pretty hard to run with somebody. It's nice to have them there to pass and be like, how you doing? How you holding up? You could share one crewing center, but it's pretty hard to stay with somebody for that amount of miles. So we kind of split around 7 miles, and then I felt really, really good for about 22 miles. And my watch, I don't have any fancy running watch. Of course, it's 2.5 months preparation. I only have a 5-year-old Apple Watch. So my watch died around 22 miles. And then very shortly after that, I was in a house of pain. I had first my left leg, right on the outside of my knee. And then my right leg was the same thing. And I was like, what is going on? I couldn't even run really. I was bent over. I was like, what is happening? And I knew that it wasn't a tear or something, because it was on both sides. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, what could it was my IT bands, because I didn't train appropriately. 2.5 months isn't enough time to get those miles under your belt. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's my IT bands. So I kind of had to power through that. And that's where that whole mental thing comes into play, where I went through any quote I could remember. I'm thinking about Goggins, and it was that, okay, I feel like I can't do this, but that means I'm only 40% of given 40%, according to him, I still have 60% in that tank. So you go through that like self-talk, and then I'm thinking about like Cocodona just got done at that time. And I was like, all these people ran 240 miles and I'm sitting here at mile 26, 27, and I feel like I can't do it, but you can. And this self-talk banter is really something. And when they say, I think it was Courtney Dauwalter with the pain cave, like you're in that pain cave and you have to try to like talk yourself out of it. So that's what I did for the remainder of the race. It was and there was a lot of it was such a well-marked trail. Like anybody in the area that I live in, I would highly recommend to do this, one of their events. It was very well marked, very supportive. However, it was like there's no joke. You were on a trail, but then you bushwhacked some. So it was like very gnarly trails at a couple of spots that were like, it was almost good though. It kind of gave you like, I don't know, a little break. You're like climbing up some rocks and bushwhacking up hills. So that was a pretty nice aspect of it too. It kind of really changed it up. For me at least. I don't know how other people felt, but I like that. My kids came with my husband and my mom to cheer me on, and I guess they got there earlier, and I wasn't checking my phone at all because I had my watch. I could glance at text messages or whatever, but something made me check my phone. I heard a text go off, and it was from my daughter, like, "You got this, Mom." And I was like, "I'm in the house of pain, honey. I don't really know if I'm like, I don't know if I can do this." And she's like, "You can't quit. You can do this. I know you can do this. You're so strong." And I was like, "Oh God, now I have to do this. I have to finish this." My kids are literally telling me the same thing I tell them when they're out on the field. So I got in from my second to last loop, and the kids were all there, and I was like, I need somebody to get me 3 Aleve and a knee brace. I knew the knee brace wasn't going to help me because it was my IT band, but I was like, I need just something. And I went out on my last leg of the race, which was I saved the shortest loop. However, you don't know really what these trails are, and it was pretty good going in, and then you got to the incline, and it was like straight up bushwhacking, and then you thought you got to where the your little piece of the metal would be, and then it just switched back up again, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I could do this. But my legs at that point were really bad. I grabbed 2 sticks that I found, and the downhill was the worst, so I actually had to walk or power hike, I guess, backwards down with these sticks because it was just excruciating, like on both sides. So that's what I did for the last downhill parts. I just carried those sticks with me.
And you were
side
walking
note,
backwards.
Yeah, down the hills.
Yeah,
I mean, it
helps.
I
It
just
helps with
could
your
not
insides.
take that pounding
Yeah.
going forward.
Yep.
So yeah, I had to compromise, and that felt a little bit better doing that.
Yeah.
Side note, I didn't ever practice in that short time with trekking poles. So I might, my next one, I might, get a pair of the collapsible trekking poles in case of a situation like that. I saw some people with pretty cool, like, I guess, quivers with them that you can just like kind of take them out when you need them. I really think they would have been helpful from probably my last like 9 miles, 10 miles, with the inclines that I had there. So that's just you should definitely practice with them before. Like I wasn't going to mess around with that, a couple weeks before the race, but I will definitely try that in the future. And then your last loop, you were allowed pacers. My goal was just to finish, so I didn't even think about a pacer. But because of that, my kids, I guess, asked, or they went out on my last loop, and they were like, I could hear them go, "Mom, Mom." So they ran in a mile and ran me out of my last loop. So they all crossed the finish line with me. So that was really cool. Yeah. So that was neat. They found me in the woods and crossed me over.
How long was that last loop again?
The last loop was 5.5 miles. So they started the loop and they found me like a mile in. So then they So they ran about 2 miles with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Special.
Yeah, that
So
was really cool.
yeah, you run it in. I mean, did you run it in? What was it like crossing the finish line? How'd you feel physically and emotionally and mentally and all of it?
So I was like in the House of Pain, and I was like everyone's cheering. I started crying. If I don't know if you saw any of the finish line pictures, but I looked horrible, horrible. I was like, oh my God. But I did it. It was awesome. It was such a good feeling to cross that finish line. And like I said, I mean, I felt really strong up to like 22 to 25 miles. So I really think that if I had more training, I would have been able to, not saying that it would have been, super pleasant, but I don't think I would have been in as much pain as I was crossing the finish line. But the pain in my like the sides of my knees actually, I guess, covered what was going on in my shoes, because when I took my shoes and socks off, I just had like skin stuck to my socks. I had, you know, toenails that had giant blood blisters. So I was like, oh, I didn't even feel any of that. So
Oh my goodness. It's crazy.
yeah. But again, I trained in the socks that I was wearing the whole time, and they were great for my 14-mile runs, but I didn't do over that. And I didn't do like a Saturday 14-mile, a Sunday 13-mile run. So next time I know to do that and try different socks out. So yeah, it was an experience. I don't have any regrets. I, finished it. I don't have regrets on signing up that late for it, but now I know, like I learned a lot from that process.
Yeah. Yeah. I just imagine, with 6 months of training, like maybe the IT bands wouldn't have been a problem. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know that pain too. I get I haven't had that pain in a while, but we'll see what happens with this next game. When I would hike, I would always get the IT band issues because my knees would hurt so bad, and I'd be like, "Why do my knees hurt so bad?" And
Yep.
IT bands.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
I feel like that might be my like Achilles heel for any of my races coming, like that I decide to do. So I just have to really like try to strengthen that and stretch the muscles around the IT band. But yeah, now I know, and I would probably, work a little bit more on my nutrition as well. There was some surprising things with that I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Did your stomach do fine during the race?
Yeah, I didn't really have stomach issues. It was just willing myself to put something in my mouth. Like I was okay with the
Mm.
electrolyte drink. And so in the morning before the race, I choked down like an English muffin with peanut butter, and then I drank Tailwind on my way to the race. And then I had, like I said, the liquid IV in my front pouches and water in the back. And I did okay with drinking. It was a very humid day. So I felt like I just had that natural thirst anyway. But it was more like willing myself to eat. Like at one point I took like a goo out of my vest and I just ran with it for like a mile. So then it was like hot goo that I had to try to suck down. Um, but yeah, I tried different things. Nothing was really appealing, I guess trial and error, and you have to force yourself, I guess, at some point to just chew something down so you don't bonk. Um, but the most shocking thing for me was when we got home, my mom had, made dinner for us here, and I sat down and I like took one bite and I was like, I don't feel well. I'm like, I can't eat. Like I thought I would be ravenous right after the race.
Yep.
I couldn't eat that rest of that night. Like that was very surprising. And I had like almost like an acid reflux feeling, but it wasn't. Like it was just like a pit in my stomach and I couldn't eat. But that went away the next morning. All bets were off. I ate
Oh,
a
you were
lot the
a
next day. Yeah, I was like, I like woke my husband up. I was like, "Can you go get me a Taylor ham, egg, and cheese from the deli?" And he's like, "What?" I was like, "Please, I'm starving." So yeah, the next morning I was fine. That's a
I've heard of
nice
that.
Jersey sandwich, yeah, for you. That's a total Jersey
Ham,
breakfast.
egg,
But
and cheese.
Taylor
Which,
ham, Taylor ham, not regular ham. And
what
it's a
is,
Jersey fight. The northern Jersey people call it Taylor ham, and the South Jersey call it pork roll. It's like a thicker sliced ham. It's
okay.
delicious. It's salty. It's like I rarely eat them because it's not good for you, but hit the spot the day after the race.
Yes. Oh, that sounds delicious.
Yeah, it was. So that was surprising too. I really thought I would be ravenous after the race, and I couldn't eat anything. So,
And how was your body after the race? Did your,
um,
yeah, muscles, IT bands, like how was that?
it was. So my husband, when I got home, it took me like 40 minutes to get up my basement stairs because it was just like painful, and then up my upstairs stairs and he had like put an ice bath together for me, which was super thoughtful, but I hate the cold to begin with, and my body was through like in shock pretty much. Like it was through a lot that day. That like sitting in that was just like even more. I was like, I sat in it for like 30 seconds, a minute, and I was like, I can't do this right now. Right now. So the next day though, the Epsom salt bath felt really good with some like magnesium that was in the salts and stuff. That felt really good. But I had some big time soreness for, I would say, 3, 4 days after. And still my IT bands now, I'm going on a week and a half after the race, and I haven't really run much. I've been biking a little bit, but every once in a while I get a little tweak in the side of my knee. I'm like, oh, there she is. So
There
they
she
definitely,
is.
yeah. I don't know if I'm really gonna play it on, the easy side for a while. I'm not gonna push myself because it's not worth me injuring it. I'm gonna let them rest up and just kind of every other day try it and see if it's a go or not.
So you did this ultra marathon, and it's your first. Was it something you liked? Are you gonna do it again? Are you gonna do a 50 miler now? Like I don't know, or are you like, I'm good. Yeah, that was fun. Stick with the shorter stuff.
So I did. I liked it. And like I said, up until that like 25-mile mark, I was good. And I just think that I need to really plan next time. I don't know if this was like I turned 40 and this was like my midlife crisis. I don't know if that was like signing up for a race. I'm not sure if that's what this was, but it was it was nice. I definitely have zero desire to do road races after that. Like my mom's like, why wouldn't you just do a marathon now? And I'm like, I don't want to run on the road. I'm like, maybe a trail marathon, but like, I don't have any desire to um, do road races. Like, I'll train on the road around here. Like I said, there's like some nice elevation, but so I think I was looking on the ultra, website and looking at some races. I probably won't do anything until the fall, but I definitely want to do something. I don't think I will do a 50 miler anytime soon. I'm not going to say never, but there was some like 50Ks, in the fall around my area. So I might do something like that. And then I don't know, maybe I'll tackle this one again next year and see if more preparation, helps me, maybe have my goal this time was just to finish. So maybe next time I'll be like, if I can knock an hour off my time or something like that. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. Self-talk is definitely real. And I felt like if I have an able body, that why not? I'm lucky, I'm strong, I'm healthy. Go out and adventure, go on some adventures. So yeah, I definitely think there'll be more in the future.
Nice. That's cool to hear.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing. And thanks for sharing everything, and especially even what was going through your head and how you talk to yourself. That was a great example of what we could do, those listening, to get through the pain cave, right? Give yourself some positive self-talk. Um, Goggins did it, so you can too. We did it. Jamie did it, so you can do it too.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love Goggins. He's like so inspirational and so crazy at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's some of the stuff is wild. I mean, everybody when you look at these, listen to the podcast and the YouTube documentaries, you're like, wow, these people are really wild. But yeah, I learned a lot from them. I mean, hopefully someone can learn from me. And I don't want people to hear like, oh, she's a trainer, she's got a leg up. Really, I am a mom. I don't train incessantly. Like I can't tell you the last time I worked out in the gym that I work at, like maybe for 10 minutes while I'm waiting for a client to come, like I'll mess around, but really I work out early morning in my basement with the bare minimum. So I'm not some, super, I am competitive, but not some super like athlete that's out there pounding the pavement every day and spending ridiculous amounts of time in the gym. I mean, I wish I could, but that's not practical for my life right now. So
Yeah,
you can do this, if you have the right mindset and you can get, if you have an hour or two a day. I think that anybody can do this if you put your mind to it.
getting super well said. Um, Thank you for sharing that. Usually I ask for like a last advice, but I think that was it. Like you can
Yeah.
do it. You can put in the time. Just put in the time and you do it in your basement. The fact that you did have like a lot of your training on the treadmill and like you're still
Yeah.
able to do this thing, like
Yeah.
make it happen.
Yeah, no,
That's sweet.
you can do it. Um, Anybody can. And my only other advice would be definitely nail down the nutrition a little bit, like just experiment on your runs, because I could see I was lucky that like I didn't have an adverse reaction to like the goos, but some people, so that's what was my primary thing. And some of the stinger waffles.
Hmm.
But yeah, I would mess around with stuff for nutrition if, because it is, you definitely do need that. And yeah, you can run into some stomach issues if you don't practice with that beforehand.
Yes, yeah, yeah. You are lucky that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, have interviewed people who do have it.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, that's cool. Thank you, Jamie, for sharing your story today. And I look forward to seeing where you go, what you do in the future. We'll have to keep in touch. Yeah, maybe we could even have you. We've got a Facebook group. Maybe we can have you join in there so we can see what you're doing in the future.
Sure.
Right. Sweet.
Yeah, that'll be great. And good luck with your 50K. That's super exciting. You're gonna do well.
Thank you. Yep, that's coming up in August, so I'll probably have my own episode for myself at that point. It'll be sweet. Thanks for your tips. Everything you said today will help me. I
Yeah,
appreciate
no,
it.
absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, your host Brendan here. I just wanted to thank you personally for listening to today's episode. As someone preparing for my own first ultramarathon, I've found these conversations to be super valuable, and I hope they are for you as well. Whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or somewhere else, make sure to follow or subscribe so you know when the next episode comes out. Also, make sure you check out the show notes of this episode. There's a link to sign up for the Ordinary to Ultra email newsletter, to join our Facebook and Strava groups where you can meet other people striving to run their first ultra marathon, and see any links that our guests may have provided as well. Thanks again, and we'll catch you in the next episode.